We got it. All right. All right. Well, tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm making a presentation for the mission, and so we're doing this also on Facebook, guys. And I'm grateful for everybody who came tonight. And this is the presentation of what we did in 2022. And so a little and into 2023, just the beginning, this last tour I did because I didn't get to go in 2022 due to all the issues that we had. As you know, Rose had to have surgery at the beginning of the year. I was supposed to try to get there for at least 2 months, but when I went to go, I found out they had a new rule that you had to have the COVID vaccine, which I didn't have, didn't want to get, but ended up having to get it in order to go. So I wasn't able to go last year, and then by the time September rolled around, when I tried to go the second time, I do 2 tours a year, 3 months each time. By the time the second one rolled around, the economy was bad, people weren't giving, things were down, and I just wasn't able to go. So anyway, by January we had it built up again. We were able to go, and so I was able to get there in 2023. So this has to do mostly with 2023, the beginning of it, since I wasn't there last year, but I also have the financial reports of everything that the people did while I was not there. And so we're going to go through that at the end. So anyway, 2023 presentation. This is, if you remember, at Christmas time we had the Gonzas here. So this kind of goes back to just before the Christmas time. They were here, and the Gonzas, we took them bowling and did some other things with them. They came from Africa and visited with us for a while, and so they were here, and so that was kind of fun, watching them bowl and having a good time with that. And we said then, oh, we're gonna do this more often. Have we done it since? No, I don't think so. Anyway, I wasn't here, so I didn't know. But anyway, it was a great time that we had with them. And if you don't know, the Gonzas are the ones that I stay with while I'm there. Albert lives in the city of Accra, the capital city, and he has a long time been in insurance and in doing insurance work for some pretty big companies over there, and finally got his own brokerage. And so he is his own insurance broker. And so he's able to come and visit us. Not like the areas where I work. I don't work in the cities most of the time. I do some preaching there when I'm there, but I don't work there most of the time. I mostly work in all the rural areas. So these are our grandchildren that we have now. We've been there so long that we adopted children when we came there in the early 2000s, and they have since grown up and they have had their children, and so these are all the youngins that are in my house most of the time. Um, if you know, I've talked a lot about Ulanja. Ulanja is the guy that takes care of the place when I'm not there. And so two of these children belong to him. This is baby Rose here. That picture is kind of blurry. And I'm not sure. Josiah is in there somewhere in the bunch. I don't know where. This is kind of a common thing, though. This is my bed. And this is a video that they get to watch on my phone. And so they like coming in to watch the videos in Grandpa's house. So anyway, and so these are all, this is Jesse. Jesse is Dinah's latest son. This is Asher. He is her first son. And I said that's baby Rose. And this is Isaiah. Isaiah, they say Isaiah, but Isaiah is the son of Joseph, another preacher who I have trained, and he works with us in the ministry, and he lives in the house right behind us. And so the kids spend a lot of time with Grandpa and Grandpa's house, and this is kind of a picture of all of them here gathered around looking at the videos. And I love all my grandkids. That's why I got to show you that picture. So this is us setting up at the church, at actually my house, which is the church. It's got a big hall for church there, the way I built it and everything. And so this is everybody setting up for that on Sunday morning. This is see the kids there helping out. That is Asher and Jesse moving chairs around and setting up the chairs for church in the morning. So, and this guy right here, it's not a, I didn't have a better photo of him. This is Dan. Dan is around 80 years old. We took him into the house um, probably about 4 years ago now. And the story on Dan was found by Ulanja sleeping in the bus station in Salaga. And he got to talking to him and found out that he was a member of the Church of Christ. and he had been in Pandai, which is another area probably about 60 miles from us, and he had come to Saliga because he had nothing left, and he was just trying to find something to do or find some way to make his living. And so when Ulanja found out he was part of the Church of Christ, we brought him into the house, started taking care of him, and Dan's been with us ever since. Dan just had cataract surgery. We got cataract surgery for him on one of his eyes because he was going blind from cataracts. And we're going to have the other eye done probably in a few weeks as soon as the doctor comes back through again to that area because they travel through. We don't have doctors in Saliga that can do that. So anyway, that's Dan. He's a great guy. Love to have him there, and so everything, and he's part of the group now. Oh, I did it twice. I didn't mean to do that. I hate when I do that. Let me try to get it back. Aha. There we go. So this is the seminar then. We set up a seminar, and as you know, I have 3-day seminars there. Every month we do 3 days worth of what we call leadership seminars, but they're open to anybody who wants to learn more. You don't have to be a church leader. You can just be anybody who wants to learn more and get more education in the scriptures. And so we have, generally right now we're having about 50, 60 people come to these training seminars. And yeah, it's a lot of people. And they fill up, you can see there, they filled up the house there, the hall. And we have them come, like I said, when I'm there, we do that each month that I'm there. And so we end up with that many people coming in for the training classes. And when they do that, we supply the food for them and all those kind of things. It's sort of an expensive venture, but not as much as it would be if we were doing 60 people in America. Let's put it that way. Because the girls help out a lot. My girls in the house are the greatest because they do all the cooking. They come and they're out there cooking for all these people and doing all this. And they're a great group of girls that we have. If you don't know, and I know you probably won't remember a lot of these, but Cecilia is one of the girls that's in the house that we've taken in years ago. Dinah is one of our adopted daughters that we brought into the house. And Marta is there. And Judith Ulanja, who is Ulanja's wife. And so we have all those women there who really do a lot of work doing these seminars. And of course, to the women who come in, a lot of these women who come in from the villages, they come in also to help out. And they just come for that purpose so they can basically help out and do those kinds of things. This is preaching at Lompe. After we had our first seminar there, I also went to be preaching at Lompe. Lompe is, actually, it's the first church that I began there years ago in that area. I had come in, and when I started in there, I just started working with some of the churches that had been set up there, but nobody was really paying much attention to them, and they didn't really have any training or leadership. And I started working with them, but then we started planting churches, and we planted one here and Ukonjabundo and some other places around the area. And so this is really the first church that I got started with. As far as the one that I started was in Lompe. And the preacher there is Daniel Yo-Yo, who my granddaughter loves. Isabel just loves that guy. So anyway, Daniel Yo-Yo. But Daniel's getting pretty old now. He's getting hard of hearing, and his eyesight's getting bad. So we're trying to work on training others to work in there. One of them may be Joel. If you remember my presentation before, I talked about Joel, training Joel as a carpenter. He's from there. But he'd have to live in Saliga, do his carpentry work, and then go there to do the preaching every Sunday. And I'll kind of get into that in a minute. We have a circuit preaching setup going on. Now, anybody has questions, you can stop me at any time and ask questions, okay? Yeah, Rob. In my house. He wanted to know where the people stay when they're coming for the seminars. They stay in my house. And all laying the whole hall there is packed with we rent mattresses, and everybody's laying on mattresses, and they all stay right there in the house. And of course, if the weather's nice, a lot of guys sleep outside and that kind of a thing. So yeah, yeah, because it's hot, and the mosquitoes are just about as bad outside as they are inside because the doors are open all the time. So anyway, yeah, so they just go and sleep outside. This is the area leaders meeting. Now, on this, what happened was when we were having our seminar, we were trying to look at a way. What I wanted to do was set up a situation where the churches would get together and not feel like it is too expensive for them to do that. Because usually a lot of times what happens is because there's not somebody there to supply money, the things kind of don't go forward with the churches getting together, and we're trying to bring unity. Uh, uh, Thomas Poor was one of the strong leaders of the area when I came there, and he passed away. And he was handling probably like 12, 13 churches that he was handling himself. And like I said, he was one of the strong leaders. He was a good friend of mine. And what happened was when he passed away, the churches kind of divided out. So there's a couple leaders that kind of like were selfish. Let's put it that way, you know. And so what happened was it became a problem, and the churches. So I wanted to try to find a way to bring the churches together. So, and I'm a really neutral guy, so there's no problem. Nobody has a problem with me. So I brought them all together, and in this meeting that we had, many of the leaders, and we decided that what we would do is have an area-wide uh, basically an area-wide seminar or gathering one time while I'm there. So basically, it replaces one of our seminars we would have had, the 3-day seminars for the classes. We're basically going to move it to a different area each time so that everybody has opportunity to participate. Because a lot of times it's older people, they can't travel a long distance, so they can't get to one like we're having on the south side of Saliga. So we're going to have one like on the south side, on the north side, and perhaps one going up more towards a different area at a different time. And so the leaders set it up so that the leaders will decide where it will be. When we have the meeting, they're setting up a meeting for August, they will decide where the next one's going to be, and they decide who the speakers are going to be and set that up. And so then we move it from area to area to area. And I told them what I would do because instead of spending money for the food for our seminar, I told them I will buy just the meat because that's the difficult thing for them. They're all farmers, so they've all got, you know, all kinds of fruits growing up and vegetables and all this kind of a thing for the other stuff. But it's difficult for them to be able to afford the meat. So I said, well, I'll pay for the meat and then they can go ahead and just supply everything else. And of course, they do all the cooking and everything too. And that's another place, especially like Cecilia, Dinah, they came to there and they helped the women organize because a lot of the women haven't done something that big before. And so they came and they helped those women organize and they helped them cook and they helped them do all those things. Like I said, they've been a great benefit to us. But anyway, these are the men we met at Kuwani. Kuwani is where Thomas used to be at. Kuwani is probably 10 miles, 15 miles from Saliga, but the road is very, very bad. It takes a while to get there because the road is just really rotten.
So are these guys all from separate churches?
Yes, those guys are all from separate churches. Yeah, they all, well, most, some of these guys here, most of these guys here were from Kuwani on that particular
Yeah,
picture.
from separate.
When we had the meeting, they were all from separate churches at my place. This meeting in particular was mostly Kiwani. We were getting together with them to help them figure out because they decided on Kiwani being the place. And so, and basically with a little pressure from me because the fact that I knew that Thomas, you know, was from Kiwani. We wanted to do the first one there, and they had the best facility actually. They had a big building there. You know, they had gotten funding from Texas from churches down there in the past, and they have a nice building. And we don't even have a building. They have a building in the village. Anyway, they had a nice building there, you know. So we decided to do it there, but we did most of it outside. The building's in the background here, but this is the meeting at Kiwani, and we started at night. We did it on a Friday night and Saturday all day, and then Sunday until noon. Give people time to get back to their places, you know, that evening or whatever. And so it was really great. And the speakers, a couple of them I didn't even know. They were from different areas that they chose out, and they came down there and they were speaking. And Olanja was speaking there, and who else was it? Nathaniel, my son, the one who married Dinah, he was speaking there. And so the seminar really went on well. And this is a daytime picture here. By the time it finished, we had 298 in attendance. We had like 220, then it went to 250, and then we had 298 in attendance for the thing. And like I said, it really worked out well. And like I said, whenever these guys come to the classes new, like to my teaching classes to teach them how to, they always rave about how they really need this kind of stuff because they don't get this kind of education. And so it helps them a lot and helps the church to grow. Any questions? Yeah, Rob. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, English is actually the educational language there. So there's a lot of English spoken there. I don't know if I'm out of the picture or not. There's a lot of English that's spoken there, but when you get into the villages, mostly there's not a lot of English being spoken. In Saliga, I think the most common language is English in Saliga. See, because Saliga, and the reason why Saliga is a melting pot. It was a slave trading center back in the day. And because of that, there's several different tribes living there because they were either brought there as slaves or they were there to trade slaves. And so you have, it's a Gonja area, but you have Gonjas and you have Konkumbas and you have Dagbanis and you have all that in Saliga itself. And so because of that, they basically had to settle on a more common language and it ended up being mostly English. And right, each tribe has a different language. And so because of English speaking being taught in the schools, English is a lot more common there. And plus there's a lot of people that come from the South who are more educated in those things who come up to work there. The prison guards, and some of them are in the church there. They came up from the South, and they came up from a more educated area. So you have a lot of that going on there in Saliga. Like I said, Saliga to me is one of the better areas for speaking English in Saliga itself. Now, outside of Saliga in the villages, obviously, when you're in the villages, a lot of them aren't educated. They don't have the English speaking. So we use interpreters. We use interpreters. So, and even sometimes guys will come from Ghana because there's so many different languages. They'll come from a different area of Ghana, and still the people can't understand them because it's a different language. So they say there are like 80 different dialects, but actual languages, I'd say there's probably, when you look at the language itself, probably 20 languages in Ghana. And Ghana, yeah, distinct languages, and yeah, yeah. So, so it becomes very difficult. You have the north, you got Frafras, you got the Goombas, you got Gonjas, you have, I'm just so many. Yeah, yeah, they're written. They have Bibles. Some of them have Bibles that are in their language and things, but sometimes the translations aren't very good. Yeah. Yeah, I met the woman who translated the Konkoma Bible, and she was like a 90-year-old woman from England in a very liberal mindset. So yeah, so the translations didn't come out the best. So yeah, so that's why a lot of times I would rather go ahead and preach it in English and have them translate it rather than reading it from their Bibles because I don't know exactly how their Bible is going to put it. So, and that becomes one of the issues. How many languages I know? I know a little bit of several. Let's put it that way. I know what you call market language. I can go in there and buy my food, go into a restaurant, order food, this kind of a thing, and I can do the greetings. But as far as preaching in a language, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. Yeah, how's your family? How's everybody doing? Kind of where you're going and this kind of a thing. I mean, those kinds of things, and going in and just saying, oh, I'd like to get this, this, and this in the market. I know the names and I can speak to them in their language. But as far as getting into anything more in depth than that, it's hard to do. Mostly because of the fact that I work in a lot of different areas and it's all different languages. So which one do I learn? And it's just very difficult. And the older you get, the harder it is. Your brain gets hard and it's difficult to learn a new language. I remember when I was young, I could pick up something like that, but now it's like I have to work forever. Anyway, almost 300. We almost hit 300, 298. I usually tell people 300, but I thought I have to be dead honest here. Since I got it written, when you write it, it's different. So I had to be had to be perfect at 298. This is preaching at Yorgo. After that, I went up to Yorgo Medina. That's a church that I started with Paul Attabidi. And we went up there. He was working. We trained Paul years ago. Kind of the story behind him was I met him. He was in a village up in that area. He was going through education, and I sent him down after he finished his high school. I sent him down to Kumasi to the Bible college there to get training there, and also at the same time, him and Olanja went there together. They were both doing Bible college and secular college at the same time. Distance training, secular college, and Bible college they were doing at the same time. So they would go for like weekends, spend weekends and it's like 12 hours a day or whatever on the weekends doing distance training for one of the universities. And then they were also in the Bible college at the same time doing Bible college. And so they both have just been a great blessing, of course, to the ministry. I use Olanja. Paul is up here, and Paul is preaching here. Now this guy back here is Joel. Joel was I had brought Joel with me and had him preaching that week, and so Joel was up here preaching at the church at Urigo. This building, we helped them build that along with the church in Missouri, and I just can't remember the name. You remember Don Collins, who came a few years ago, and he came to a couple of our presentations or whatever a few years ago. Don was at the church at Missouri. I can't remember the name of, and they helped finish the building. We started it. I bought the property for them, and we set up the foundation, and then his church came in, and they finished putting up the rest of the building. They also sent a group up from Kumasi that helped us in the beginning doing evangelism for this area. So anyway, we got this church started, so we went up there to do the work there. I got a little picture here. We also this is a village that is about 5 miles from the church there, and we went there, and there's some church members that come from there. Like I said, it's difficult. It's not a good area road-wise and things. It's difficult for them to get there, and so we went there to their village to do some evangelism, and this was some teachings we were doing on marriage. And this is just a group that we picked up that were there doing some sewing and weaving of materials. They weave materials and things, and so they were doing some weaving. And so we picked up on that group, and we did the classes there on marriage. Uh, and this is a church. I kind of give you the lowdown on this church here. You see it back here. Kind of a shanty kind of a thing. This is actually, though, in central Bolgatanga. Now, Bolgatanga is a pretty good sized place. Yeah, it's a pretty good size. This is in central Bolgatanga. And what happened here was there was a guy that Don Collins was working with that I didn't work with because I didn't trust the guy. And this guy started this church along with some help from Charles Adoy. You know Charles Adoy. They got this church started and they got it going and everything. Well, then finally Don found this guy out that he was not doing well, that he was taking the money and using it for his own businesses and this kind of a thing, which I suspected all along. I didn't have proof, but just I'm a kind of a good judge of character, and just seeing the guy and watching him a little bit, I realized. And part of the problem is because a lot of these guys that come over there to these works don't spend a lot of time there. So they don't really get to see what's going on. And that's one of the reasons why I decided years ago that I was not going to support somebody else. I was going to go myself, because you got to really be there to see what's going on. And so that's why I decided to spend 6 months a year there at least, because I wanted to make sure of everything that's going on. Well, anyway, Don finally found this guy out, and they had to let him, cut him off. And this church was started by him and the others. But then, of course, after he was gone, they were left with no leadership. So they convinced Paul to come there before church on Sundays at Yorgo to do church service here at this little church inside of Bolgatanga. And it's a great area, like I said, because it's right in the center of the town. It's right in the center. But they don't own this property. They only rent this property and work out of this building. I went there and taught on Sunday morning with Paul before we went to Yorgo. And, I really was convicted to try to go back. I think this year I'm going to spend more time in this area. I think this year I might go up there and spend like an entire month. The end of this year coming, or maybe I'll wait till the next year or whatever. But I'd like to maybe start trying to spend at least a whole month up there and try to put on some of the same programs like I'm doing in Soliga. I won't be putting up another house or doing it. I'll never be doing that again. I'm just going to go there, find a place to stay, and then I'll work with them for a month, and that kind of a thing. So, and hopefully, in the future they'll be able to do a lot of that stuff themselves then. But they really need the training. This is Martha over here on the left with Asher. Asher went with me too. I like to take him wherever I go. So anyway, and this is Paul. This is Paul over here. This is Paul over here on the right with me in front of the truck. I needed a haircut in that picture. I was getting bushy. Anyway, this is the campus ministry. That picture is a blurry picture because I had to have somebody else take the picture. Uh, this is the campus ministry we do for SAS, which is the senior high school in Saliga. All the senior highs around are always boarding schools because they come from so much rural area and so many areas that they're all boarding schools. And so they have a campus in there. And so we go in and we do teaching there. And the teaching here is done mostly by Gabriel, who is the husband of Marta, my other adopted daughter. So, and their marriages have worked out really good for me. Let's put it that way. Well, yeah, it's really worked out great for me, because even Nathaniel is also one of the guys going around doing circuit preaching now for me. See, and so we just worked that out this last year, and so I'll kind of talk about that again in a minute. But we were doing that anyway. We needed Bibles, and so they're holding up Bibles here because I sent out a thing and asked for Bibles, and Jeremy Wilson actually said he would buy the Bibles. We wanted to get 500 Bibles, and so he said because we needed them for the prison ministry also. I have that coming up here too. We needed them for prison ministry. We needed them for this. And I asked for 500. I figured that would get us by for 2 or 3 years. And so he came up with it, said he would buy them. So we ended up purchasing, right now we've purchased like 300 of them. We're going to purchase another 200 as we get these put out. But I got the bulk price on them because I committed to the 500. So the woman in Tomalee, who has a bookstore there, went ahead and gave me bulk price. I'm cheap, I'm just just a cheap guy. I try to get everything done as cheap as I can. This is Andrew's house. Andrew is one of the preachers from a place called Cayeso. And I didn't put my map on here this year. I messed up. I wasn't even thinking about it. Anyway, this is his house. He's one of the guys that's preaching in Cayeso. And he was under Thomas before, being trained by Thomas and things, and he's now the preacher that's at Care. So he comes to all my classes and does all that kind of thing. Well, we had a windstorm, and there's 3 preachers that got the roofs blown off. And we were able to replace 2 of them with the money that we had. The third guy, I'm not sure if he got money from somewhere else or what, but he got money to be able to put his up himself. But these guys didn't have the money, and this is what happened. It tears the roofs off. They're metal roofs, and the walls are basically packed mud. You see this mud here, and then they put cement on the outside. And some of them they never even finished. Like that one never got finished. Well, when you only have the rafters setting in mud, and then what they'll do is they take quarter rod. I don't know if you know quarter rod's quarter-inch steel rod, but anyway, they take quarter rod, they wrap it around the base of the truss, and they bring it down about this far into the wall and stick it into the wall. Well, you get a good wind, and it still just rips right through the wall. No matter what, you'll have like 3-foot rips out of the wall where it just takes those steel bars and just pulls them right up through that mud and mortar wall. So anyway, we helped them. That was one of the projects we did. It won't show up in this financial report because it wasn't 2022. But in 2023's financial report, that'll come up, and we'll go over that again. So we helped Andrew get the roof. We paid to get that roof put back on his house, so we had a roof over his head. This is the old truck. We got the new one. I was graced by God and Cart Webb to be able to get a new truck for the ministry a couple years ago. This is the old one, so we're restoring it. And what we're restoring it for is to be able to pick people up for the assemblies on Sunday mornings, especially when we have students that are quite a ways away that are going to the nursing college. We have older people who really can't travel well and this kind of a thing. So you see, we put these seats in the back. I should be using this, huh, instead of sticking my hand up there. There we go. We built these seats in the back, and it's like a seat all the way around on the inside, and then we use backs on this side and that side, so they can get inside and we can go and pick them up. And of course, we have it's a double decker, so we can put people in the back there too. And so then we go around, and Gabriel does that part. Gabriel, my daughter Marta's husband, he goes around and picks people up in the morning for church before church begins. And then he also helps lead in the church. He does teaching, he leads songs and this kind of a thing in the church also. This is a new motorcycle that we bought, and I gave this one to Alonja and took his older one, and I gave that one to Nathaniel. I remember I was saying before, we're having trouble because we're short on leadership, and we talked about Daniel Yo-Yo. Daniel Yo-Yo is struggling. I mean, he's struggling. He's getting hard of hearing and hard of seeing, and he's the only one taking care of that church in Lompe. And so, and they're also the church in Oconjabando. They don't really have a good trained leader, and so we're working with them. So what's happening is Nathaniel is going around on Sunday mornings, and then he'll spend like 2 weeks preaching at Lompe to help out Daniel Yo-Yo, and then he'll also go over to Oconjabando, where we started the church years ago, and he will go over and preach there a couple Sundays and kind of makes the rounds going to those different places. And so the motorcycles are very important to us. It costs about $1,200, $1,300 for this, like a motorcycle like this. Brand new. Right, brand new. No, it's still about the same. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's Chinese. It's Chinese, and they're good for about 3, 4 years before it finally gets to where the maintenance costs are going too far. Right, right. After about 2, 3 years, you need to get rid of them and get something else. And so that's what we're trying to do that. But it's like everything. When money's not quite there, you still keep the old one, because it's a lot cheaper to. I mean, it's a lot less intrusive at the moment to put a couple hundred in it than it is to fork out the 1,400, 1,200, whatever for the new one, depending on what you get. They range anywhere. You can get them as low as like 1,100, but that one's not a very good. Up to 1,400. Or you can go beyond that, but we're not going beyond that. So anyway, and it's good. This is a good type motorbike for the work where he's going and what he's doing and everything. And so it's a strong motorcycle. This was like a 170, I think, 170 cc's is what this one is. For them, that's a big one. For them, that's big. Most of them's 125s. So for them, a 170 is a big bike. For us, that's a toy, but for them, that's a big bike. Anyway, this is what's called. I took a picture of this old one because they brought it to one of the seminars. These guys, they rented this to come to the seminar, but there's a couple of churches. Well, you saw the church at Yortigo, and they have a place. They've been begging me for a few years to see about could they get the money to be able to get one of these for the church, to be able to bring people to church, because some of these guys are trying to get people from the next village, which is 4 or 5 miles down the road, and they like to be able to circle and come and get them and things. And I've refused them in the past, and things like that. But I said I would make this presentation to see if anybody had a heart about that, to try to get something like that for them. Because you saw the village that we were looking at Kunkua. That's the one where we did the marriage seminar. Well, it's hard to get people to be able to get there on Sundays because of the distance and the type of road and everything else. And so Paul was wanting to be able to get something like this to be able to use for the church to go around and make rounds and pick people and come. Kind of like the old bus ministries that, but, here it would work because it doesn't work in the States so much because everybody travels and they've got the money to travel and this kind of thing. But here, they don't travel. They don't have the money to travel. There aren't buses. There aren't cars. They don't have anything, except walking. And so for here, it would work a lot better than it does. And that's why we use the truck, because being able to use the truck, it helps us to be able to even pick people along the way or whatever. So anyway, this is the unfinished project. I'm kind of getting into the projects now, things we're looking at. This is the unfinished project. If you guys remember, we started this a couple years ago now. Then COVID came and we got delays and all this kind of a deal. We did get the foundation in. We got this poured. This is going to be a two-story building eventually. It is mostly for the seminars and for the gatherings and this kind of a thing because, like I said, we don't even have a building. We still meet in the hall in the house in Saliga. And so eventually this building is going to, the upstairs is going to be a total big hall for assembly. This is about 27 by 60. And so the upstairs will be a hall for assembly. The downstairs is going to be rooms to house the students in that we're training or people when they come for the seminars. Like I said, you got 60 people sleeping in my hall now in the house. So this would be just for that purpose, basically always for meetings, for all different meetings. And as I said, we'd like to get into trying to have some of these, the guys we're training, instead of just doing it once in the month for 3 days when I'm there, some of these guys could come and stay in a room there and be being trained by Ulanja or myself in what we like to call like an apprenticeship kind of thing, where they follow these guys. They can be going to the villages with these guys, actually hands-on preaching, teaching them at the same time, going through my classes that I go through on the seminars, because we're way ahead. We've got like 20, 30 classes that's already been finished, and these guys haven't done those. So if they come in, they're starting on the late classes. So basically, if they can come and stay there for a while, they can spend every day working on these classes and going through it and getting a lot of time in. So that's the purpose of that building. I think we figured up the cost to be probably to finish it to the point of being able to use it and have a decent place, about $80,000. And what our plan was to spend about $10,000 a year for 8 years, because we didn't have that kind of money. About $10,000 a year for 8. Just do a little bit each year, a little bit, and you can do that here because nothing's built from wood. Everything's built from concrete, so it doesn't matter if you get halfway done and it rains for 30 days or whatever. It doesn't make a difference because it's all concrete, mortar, and this kind of a thing. So we don't have any problem. Like this foundation, it's sitting there. You can see the steel rods coming up, the re-rod. That is for finishing up and putting the pillars up before we put the upper floor on. So like I said, everything there is can be stretched out over a long period of time, and that's our plan for that. It's just eventually to keep going until we finally get that done. No, no, no. In fact, that's why I got to be there to watch. I don't let them do anything when I'm not there because I've seen some of the other buildings, and it's yeah. I don't allow that to happen. And this is us. If you remember, this is us pouring the concrete. When we were out there doing it at night, we had to do it at night because it was so hot. But this is kind of a reminder of the work we did on that before. I never know how many people remember exactly what we've talked about before, so I always put this stuff up there. And there's my little helpers, baby Rose, and there's Asher when he's a little bit smaller. He's about 2 years old there when he's carrying the mud to help us do the work there. So anyway, my kids, I gotta put them in there. Anyway, we had at least 23 baptisms, I know of for sure, but there was a lot more than that. These guys do things, and they don't. I don't make them report to me every little thing that they do. But I'll go there and I'll see like 5, 6 new faces, and I say, "Oh, these new, yeah, oh yeah, we baptized them," but I never knew about it. So we had at least 23 that I know of while I was there, and so 2 of them were during the Kiwani gathering that we had. 2 of those were during the Kiwani gathering that we had. What else? Oh, yes. And that one, Rose's mom, 93 years old, was baptized when I got back. So that was one of the greatest ones right there. So I think, here's the financial report. Finally, what time is it here? Hey, I did all right. That's the fastest I've probably ever gotten through it. So anyway, here's the financial report. Now the upper part's in CDs, so you have to divide that like 10 or 11. So anyway, I'll just kind of go down to the bottom. This is the conversion. This is the conversion down here. So for personal food, wow, it was 0 because I didn't go 2022. So no personal food in 2022. This is for the aid. And this a lot, like I talked about Thomas's wife, we've helped her out. A lot of people we've helped out over the time. we go. People in the villages are sick or whatever. We give them aid. We give them help. Anything like that, you know. And anyway, over the year we spent 7,936 in aid. Fuel, fuel. This will be down to was that $503 because I didn't go. So that $503 was just for motorbike fuel and those kind of things that we were using to go different places and that kind of. It doesn't all show up here because like there's two guys that I have on basic what you call salary. I have to have at least two guys because of there's too much to be done, too much to control. They can't be working another job. So there's two guys that I have on salary, and their fuel money and everything comes out of their own salary. You know, it's just basically part of their plan or package, and they pay it out of their stuff. So not all the fuel is in here. It's basically wrapped into their salary, but overall we had the 500 and what did I say here? 503. Yeah, 503. I think I said 503. Anyway, then we have vehicle maintenance was $435. That's motorbike repairs and this kind of a thing. Miscellaneous travel was only $63. That was just people having to go somewhere on a bus to do something or whatever. Miscellaneous travel. Household expenses were 2,132. That's gas, electric, gas by propane gas, you know, not gas to heat, but gas for cooking. Propane gas for cooking, that was electricity, charcoal, anything we bought for the house, repairs for the house, that kind of a thing. Yeah. Well, all that. So our office expenses were 202, that's cheap too because I wasn't there, so I wasn't doing copies and all this kind of a thing that we often do for the classes and this kind of a deal. That's just basically what they spent during the year. Education fund out of there. This is out of there. This Americans coming up here. The education fund ended up being 5,104. A lot of that is concreted in because of the fact that somebody has said, I'm going to give this money. That money comes into us. I report it, but then it goes immediately to the guy that's getting the education because somebody has said, I'm going to sponsor this guy. So that's 5,104. Teachers, which is basically the guys that are doing the work there that I'm supporting and helping out. American expenses, you kind of look at down here. I can't even read my own stuff down here. That is 293. The dollar sign's messing me up. $293 for aid. That was money that we used actually for some people here out of the ministry and things for some people here. This was $29 for fuel. Yeah, $29 for fuel. Not much. Anyway, $217 for vehicle maintenance. There was $3,039 for miscellaneous travel. That is my airplane tickets mostly. Airplane tickets. Yeah, were pretty much the bulk of that. 2,800, I think, for the airplane tickets. Yeah. So I have these. These are notes, but I can't do it on here because that's just a copy of the thing. Hey. Yeah. Yeah. I accidentally hit it.
You can set it on the thing and move it down to the last slide.
Oh, yeah, let me scroll. Hmm. Oh, let me do it down here. That's the easiest thing. It's easier doing it. Yeah. See, that's not gonna work.
You gotta click.
You don't understand. See, I don't have a. Anyway. Uh, pump.
Yep.
Aha.
And then double click it.
Well, I can still see it, right?
Then you gotta double click it on the actual slide. So scroll over now. then double click it.
No,
Didn't do it. Make it full screen too.
no, no. You have to go back into the presentation to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah.
Got it? Oh, no. Wait, oh.
Yeah. That was a fast presentation. There you go, man. So anyway, yeah, teachers. That was basically what we did last year, Rose and I. That's what we took out of there for us. Now, on that, uh, it should go down a lot this year because we went on retirement. So we both went on retirement at the end of the year. So we're trying to make all of our living mostly off our retirement. So there will be some because I'm sure it's not going to cover. But anyway, we're trying to make our so that we can basically give our time and everything to the work free of charge as much as possible. This is money that was put into the building that we sent over from here. If we sent it over from here, I put it on American Expense because we sent it from here. I didn't spend it while I was there. That's kind of the difference. So anyway, down here, if you're looking at medical expenses, this is the biggest one. That is basically the money that came out for our health insurance and all these kind of things, and whatever we had to spend for medicine or hospital fees or doctor's fees or whatever. So what that's for. And